Indiana Fever front office is about to do another roster overhaul for the 2026 WNBA season.
Okay, hold up. Indiana Fever just pulled a move that no one saw coming. Seriously, the entire WNBA was shook. Just hours after getting knocked out of the playoffs, they dropped 8 players in a single night. Boom! Gone! Chaos everywhere. Fans were losing it, insiders were scrambling, and even rival coaches were left with their jaws on the floor. But here's the real question. Why? Is this some genius long-term rebuild we're all too blind to see? Or is it a straight-up panic move? A reaction to another season ending in disappointment? Either way, the Fever just flipped the script, and the league will never look at post-playoff nights the same again.
I believe a lot of players will be exiting the building like Elvis, bruh. They got to get the hell out of Dodge. Now, I'm telling you right now, I believe more than half of this team is going to leave. I just got to keep it real. A lot of players is going to leave. I believe a few big names is probably going to leave. And more importantly, we need to get the ball back.
One thing is crystal clear, this isn't just about basketball anymore. Nope, it's egos clashing behind closed doors, front office power plays, and a race to build a championship team around Caitlin Clark before that window slams shut. Now that the dust is settling, everyone's asking the same questions. Who's really staying? Who's next to go? And what does this mean for the Fever's future? Because the real story behind those 8 cuts, it's way deeper than anyone expected. And it all starts with what was actually happening inside the organization. The drama, the tension, and the decisions nobody saw coming.
No one predicted them to go this far, especially without Caitlin Clark. Now, granted, they was projected to be, final contenders, but that was with the roster that they had. Obviously, they had a whole nother roster, and like I keep telling y'all, momentum was the key.
When that final buzzer sounded, it wasn't just the end of the Fever's playoff run, it was the end of an era. Inside the locker room, the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Players who had battled injuries, rotating lineups, and non-stop drama suddenly realized their futures in Indiana were hanging by a thread. The coaching staff stayed quiet. The mood was heavy, and before anyone even left the building, whispers were spreading. Something massive was coming. Sources say releasing 8 players wasn't an impulsive move, it had been brewing for weeks behind closed doors. Rumors of clashes between the front office and head coach Stephanie White had been simmering for months, especially over playing time and team chemistry. The Fever's late-season collapse exposed every weakness from poor rotations to tension between veterans and rookie. By the time elimination hit, management had already decided it was time for a full reset.
We all know Stephanie White was running a whole lot of sets, bro. Whole lot of sets, whole lot of off-ball things, whole lot of things that Caitlin Clark really don't like to do, bro. Let's just be honest. Caitlin Clark is being the biggest trooper for this damn basketball team, but I think, just like I stated before,
the Fever had bet everything on Caitlin Clark, the league's biggest star and marketing powerhouse. But as the season wore on, fans started asking the hard question: why wasn't the team actually built around her strengths? Analysts kept pointing out that the offense had drifted far from the fast, free-flowing system that made Clark a college legend. Instead, it became rigid, slow, and full of forced sets lineups that just didn't make sense. Clark did her best to adjust, but by the final game, it was painfully obvious. She was carrying too much of the load in a system that didn't fit her style. Then the injuries hit. Key players went down. The Fever's lack of depth was exposed, and the blame game started. The front office questioned coaching decisions. Players questioned conditioning programs. Losses kept piling up, and the message was clear: something had to change fast. The Fever weren't about to let another season slip away with one of the most hyped players in basketball history on their roster. By sunrise after elimination, calls were made. Agents were notified, lockers cleared, and 8 players were told, "You're not coming back." Just like that.
They was running this off ball and doing all these different experiments. Without momentum, I don't believe they would have made it as far. I believe they was playing meaningful basketball just due to the amount of injuries that the team took, and it kind of motivated them. They said it in their exit interview. The bench power pretty much motivated them and gave them the energy they need to prolong and get through a bunch of them long stretches in them series.
The move was ruthless, no question, but it sent a loud, unmistakable message. The Fever were done settling for mediocrity. This wasn't just about surviving the season, it was about building a team that could actually win around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Championships were the goal, not participation trophies. Fans saw hope a fresh start, a real rebuild. But behind the scenes, it was also power plays, pressure mounting, and control struggles at the top. This wasn't just a roster shakeup, it was a signal that the Fever front office had hit its breaking point. And if you think the cut stopped there, think again. The aftermath made one thing crystal clear. The Fever are finally ready to build around Caitlin Clark the way she was meant to play.
Listen to what Caitlin Clark had to say years ago.
A huge reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You know, you're going to have the ball in your hands a lot. And I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read and react offense that we run was super important for myself. You know, you're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love.
For months, fans have been begging one thing: let Caitlin Clark be Caitlin. No more overcomplicated sets. No more forcing her off the ball. What made her a generational star at Iowa wasn't just scoring, it was her freedom, her rhythm, her command of the court. When she played instinctively, teammates fed off her energy and everything clicked. Strip that freedom away and the team lost its soul. Inside the Fever organization, voices have been pushing to bring back that same read and react offense. Clark thrived in it at Iowa. She wasn't just a scorer, she was a creator, a conductor, the heartbeat of the offense. With the roster thinning and cap space opening, this could finally be her team. Sources say this offseason will focus on players who actually fit her style. High IQ shooters, floor spacers, teammates who anticipate her reads instead of waiting for set plays. The goal: Iowa on steroids basketball, Clark dictating tempo, defenses scrambling, chaos for opponents. Insider joke: if you can't cut, shoot, or move without the ball, don't bother showing up. Clark herself has been patient, but her frustration has been visible. Press conferences were careful, yet her message was clear. She wants fluid basketball, freedom to play the game she loves. Behind that calm exterior is a competitor tired of limits that make no sense. For Fever fans, this isn't just strategy, it's identity. When Clark is unleashed, everything changes. Arena energy, on-court chemistry, opponent defenses. This rebuild isn't just about cutting players, it's about cutting excuses. Everything from coaching philosophy to recruiting to rotations needs to align with the player who can revitalize the WNBA. But there's one critical question: can Stephanie White adapt? The same coach who leaned on rigid playbooks now faces the defining moment of her career: evolve with Clark's game or risk becoming the next name on the exit list. The front office has made its move. Now it's up to the coach to follow the vision or stand in its way.
The style of play, and this is what I've been saying, we need to go back to the basics. And the basic is this style of play with Caitlin Clark, giving her the ball. Let her play freely, openly. Let her do what she do. No calling different sets going up the court. No doing none of this. Put players around Caitlin with that know how to obviously resets, know their responsibility, because Caitlin Clark said it.
As the dust settled from the mass roster cuts, one name kept coming up behind the scenes: Stephanie White. Once praised for developing young talent, she now finds herself at the center of mounting tension. Insiders say her relationship with the front office has quietly deteriorated, and the reason is simple: her system doesn't match the Fever's new direction. White's structured play-by-play offense worked for a time, but with Caitlin Clark at the helm, it started to feel outdated, and everyone noticed: fans, analysts, and now the front office. The message is clear: change is coming, whether she likes it or not. Supporters argue White had a tough hand injuries, constantly shifting rotations, and a roster learning to mesh around a superstar. But critics say she refused to adapt, clinging to a rigid system that stifled creativity and slowed the team. Pick and rolls and isolation plays dominated, forcing Clark to operate within tight boundaries instead of playing instinctively, a slow death for a player who thrives on improvisation. The breaking point came late in the season during heated internal meetings. Front office executives demanded a more open offense centered on Clark, while White argued the team wasn't ready. That quiet power struggle defined the Fever's final stretch of games. After playoff elimination, management reportedly saw it as proof that White's style couldn't get them over the hump. Players noticed too. Veterans backed the structure. Younger players complained it felt robotic, micromanaged, and restrictive. Clark stayed measured publicly, but her body language told the story. Hesitation, quick glances to the bench, moments where her natural flow was replaced by second-guessing. She was holding herself back. Now, with 8 players gone and the roster reshaped, all eyes turn to Stephanie White and her uncertain future. whispers of a replacement are growing louder. The front office is quietly evaluating coaches who could implement a modern offense tailored to Clark's strengths. Whether White returns may depend entirely on her willingness to change. The message from management couldn't be clearer. This franchise belongs to Caitlin Clark. If the head coach can't build around her the right way, the next big announcement may not be about a player leaving it. Could be Stephanie White packing her bags.